Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Hello to all my Safe Space friends. I hope you had wonderful holidays. We have some fun New Year's stuff I have to get out to you guys immediately. I have my friend Gary Gradley here. He's also called the Purpose Coach. He is helping you bring clarity and passion to your future. He is the publisher of the Kingdom Promise, and he's come on here today to not only tell a little bit about his story, but tell you about his purpose and a really great webinar that you can hop on to in the first 2 weeks of January, I believe. He's going to give you all the information about it, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it on over to Gary. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you, Cheyenne. I'm grateful for you and all the good work that you do and the difference that you are making in the world. And I would just say that's true for all of us, right? We are designed to make a specific difference in the world. And who would agree that the world's in pretty much high level of chaos, maybe the most in our entire lifetime. And so for each of us to step up and into our purpose and to deliver our gifts to this hurting world, I think is critical. And this is the time. So, sorry, that was kind of a heavy intro, but
No, that's not heavy at all. I think it's very inspiring, especially for the new year. I know that everyone has their New Year's resolutions, new me, new year, new me. And I think it's powerful. But I also think the things that we're going to talk about today will maybe drive those people further to continue to examine not only do I really want to do this, but why is this the focal point that I want for my new year and new me? So I think it's perfect.
Absolutely. And when it comes down to the why is the most important part of that, the who, the what, the how, all that, right? It's the why, that's the purpose, it's the reason, it's the fuel, actually, for what you choose to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So where does this begin with you? You haven't always been a purpose coach. So what part of Gary are we starting on today? Give people a little insight.
Let me take you back to when I had my own corporate training business and things were going along really well. I started this in 1992, so it's a while, and things were going along great, serving about 1,000 people every year, employees, leaders throughout Canada, the Caribbean, a little of the U.S. and Australia, until the last great recession, global financial crisis in 2008, 2009. And so my clients were largely corporations, and so corporations usually spend $0 on speakers and trainers when there's a recession going on. They want to cut back, right? And so here I am. I'm working extremely hard for an entire year, and I have zero income. And as a single-family income earner, I rack up $50,000 in credit card debt, and I just become financially distressed, and I'm just focused on all the lack and all the hard work, and I literally become hopeless and cynical. I'm telling you, it's the worst place to be. I would not wish it on anybody. And so after a few months of that, I literally woke up. I remember it so clearly. I woke up one February morning in my side office over here, and I just decided I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. And I will never choose to feel hopeless ever again. The light bulb went off. I had an epiphany. And I realized, well, Gary, it's just a choice. You can choose to feel hopeless or you can choose to feel hope. It's just simply a choice. So that was a major transformation point for me, thank God, and so that got me through that. And then I felt led to talk to successful people to clean up my negative thinking, cynical thinking. And so I was led to speak with business leaders and church leaders and community leaders. And when I interviewed them, just so I could learn for myself, what I discovered really was that it was their faith in God and God's faithfulness that literally got them through their life's major crisis, their storms of their life. And so then I saw this evidence, right? I saw this evidence of that God was faithful in their life, and I chose to believe that God would be faithful in my life with $50,000 in credit card debt and zero income and no prospects for income. And so there was that evidence and that choice and that belief that literally raised my faith from 2 out of 10 to like an 8 out of 10, right? Because of the evidence that I saw, that I collected, and then later God said, put that together in a book. So major transformation point for me.
Where do I even begin on this story? You know, like, it's a really like powerhouse moment to, like, let's go back to the cynical and the hopelessness and feeling like you're waking up in this cycle every day. And like before you go to bed, you're like, okay, well, you know, when I go to bed tonight, you know, at least I'll find some peace when I go to sleep, if I can sleep. But then like as soon as you wake up in the morning, that stuff that you have no idea what to do or how to face, it's like sitting right there, and it's like, what are you going to do with all this? What are you going to do with all this? And there's so many people out there that can identify with that, which is why I really wanted to like go back there really quick. I just was watching a documentary yesterday where a lady was talking about she didn't have $20 to her name and didn't even know how she was going to eat that day. And 7 years later, now she lives in like a $750,000 house and has like made it out and found her way. But when you have those moments of hopelessness, you really feel alone. You feel ashamed, you feel embarrassed that you've actually gotten yourself in these situations. Asking for help seems pitiful, right? You're just like, I have no idea how to get out of this. And when that hopelessness really sets in, especially speaking from like, I want to say like Christian text, when we talk about like God and Satan, that hopelessness is what people would call Satan coming in and really just trying to grab at you and just be like, come down, come down, come down. So I love that in that moment, you went to who you believe in, even though you were at like kind of a 2-3 scale, which I think is really brave to admit at the time. And then the epiphany, I have a epiphany tattooed on my wrist. So when anybody uses that word, I'm like, yee, love that word. But the epiphany that you had is my favorite part, because what I was picturing is that you had is like, obviously like that dense negative energy is over you. Like, I mean, like you don't really smile a lot, you know what I'm saying? You're just like, oh, lack mindset. But then as soon as you had that epiphany about this is my choice, like I could feel like the black just crack off of you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I can get out of this. And not only can I get out of this, but I'm not alone to get out of this. Whatever way you have to get out of it. I mean, obviously like diligently working to get off of that. But I mean, credit card debt is at an all-time high, especially thanks to 2020. I know that I certainly am not away from it for us just to survive on a couple things. Especially like in my stance, like there are a lot of jobs that I would actually like to go do and participate in, but they do not match my child's daycare schedule at all. And I'm not willing to sacrifice, my kid for another job. I've done 2 of them now, and I wasn't there for my kid, and I wasn't able to be the mom that I wanted to be for her. I had the finances, I had the salary, I had the 401k. Once again, I'm back in the rat race, and I'm like, I told myself that I would never sacrifice my daughter for money. And if we have to work a little harder, if we have to get a little more creative with our finances, this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, I was still doing the podcast at the time, but I remember like my bank account would go negative because I was paying babysitters to go record outside of going and working a full-time job, because I knew that that's actually what I wanted to do. The platform and the safe space was something that I wanted to build. I was supremely passionate about. And it wasn't my problems that woke me up in the morning. It was the podcast. It was the ideas. It was the themes. It was the guests I wanted to bring on. It was the people I wanted to call. And that's like when it flipped for me. I wasn't in that helpless, lacking mindset of, oh my God, how I'm going to do it. I'm just like, I know I'm supposed to do this. I know if I go and talk to people about the fact that I'm supposed to do it, it'll kind of like deflate me. They'll kind of take all the energy out of it and be like, well, logically, how does it even make sense? How do you make money off this? How do you do it? And I'm like, no, I'm literally just supposed to do it. That's all I know. Like I have to have faith and I have to believe. And the feeling that you got when you had that epiphany, like I have those all of the time. Like when I'm doing these shows, even when I'm doing the research or making the promos, anything tied to it, the feeling of purpose is so beautiful. And not just purpose, but like you are doing something good. You're here for something so much bigger than just to suffer, which is, like you said, with the way of the world, how it is right now.
And I love the way you describe that. And
that.
I would describe that as following your heart. It's that tugging, that pulling, that passion within your heart that you are drawing towards, and you really can't resist it, right? And that's what you just described. You couldn't resist not doing, you didn't do the logical thing, you did the heart leading, thing. And there's power there. There's power in following your heart. And I believe that in our heart is what is our intuition, our soul, our purpose is buried in our heart, our soul, right? Which is our mind, our emotions, and our will. And it's actually the divine God, the source, who puts that message, that desire in our heart. And so I believe when we're following our heart, we're literally following God's calling on our life, right? It's like intuition, right? Is God speaking to us? Prayer is us speaking to God. Intuition is God speaking to us. And so that intuition in your heart, when we follow that, right, we are doing God's work. We're doing God's calling. We're in the center of God's will. It just struck me recently that for 2023, I want to be in the center of God's will, which is where peace and joy and love and grace and power and provision is, and impact is in the center of God's will. And we all have a place, right? Every one of us has a place, regardless of what your spiritual belief would be. We have a place in this world, in the center of God's will, that you are designed, right? There was a purpose for you to be designed to fulfill a specific purpose in this lifetime.
One of my favorite things I did see on a documentary on Gaia, I wish I could quote it right now, was he was talking to a very clear channel, enlightened person, whatever you'd like to call it, and he was talking about all of the suffering that he went through before he was basically awoken to his purpose. And I wrote it down because I always wanted to remember that all the things that I went through before this time were not a waste of time. I do not regret any of the things that I did to get me to where I was, and that took a lot of shame away from me, embarrassment, and it gave me a lot of forgiveness for myself. Like, I didn't have to outsource my forgiveness to somebody else. I really had to start with myself. And he said the ego has to evolve. It has to get all of the material things. It has to get the promotion. It has to get the house. It has to get the car. If you're a man, you have to get the wife and the babies and be the provider and do all of this until one day the ego gets everything at once and it's full. And then in that moment, when you feel like, oh, life is meaningless, there's nothing going on here, this is all there is for work, that's when the spirit comes in that's been tapping you and guiding you the whole time and goes, no, there actually is more. Now that you have qualified, for all of this, we're actually going to peel this ego away, not like forever. It's more of a purifier disposition, more of a Buddhist context. And we're going to now introduce the spirit that has been helping you the whole time, but now the spiritual work begins. And now you're going to understand why you took that job and why you dated that girl or that guy or why you moved here. All these things that are considered good and bad for you, you're going to understand that they are little stepping stones in a creek that you're in. And sometimes if you stand on a pebble too long, it starts sinking and you're not supposed to get in the water. So you better jump, because God is making that stone sink for a reason. That door was shut. That door was shut. My favorite one that I've heard is, it's not cosmic denial. It's like cosmic redirection. And there's so many, they're called tower moments in the tarot deck, right? But there's so many tower moments in people's lives that just feel like they're completely lost, gone, and like out on their ass, hopeless. A lot of it has to do with peer pressure and perceiving that, oh, my life should look this way to society or to my friends and to my family. Yeah, you know what I mean? So again, it just adds to all of those negative emotions you're bringing back on yourself when I'm like, we do come here for a purpose, but that doesn't mean that we're not gonna act like a lotus in the mud for a bit. We're gonna have trials and tribulations. If you open any of the stories in the book, it wasn't, oh, I frolicked through a field and talked to God for 30 years and then I accidentally got killed by my peers. That was not Jesus' story. Jesus had no matter how many of the texts we have missing, that he we don't know what he was doing. At the end of the day, like, he knew what was coming. He already knew that there were going to be hard times. I empathetically put myself in the position of Noah, like building an ark in my backyard and trying to tell my neighbor what the hell is going on. Like when you actually empathize and put yourself in these like biblical stories, you're just like, how would I as a person actually be able to do this? To be able to listen to my channel, my connection with the divine over what the earth says, the news says, friends, family, people closest to your heart, right? Like those are the ones that could actually hurt you more than a stranger or just like some weird person's opinion. How do you actually overcome those? And we kind of talked about this before, like your level of faith in whatever you spiritually believe in goes up astronomically when you actually start not only aligning yourself with your purpose, but auditing everything in your life to get you back on track of like what you actually came here for. So I love pointing out that when people find their purpose, there's some people that don't want to talk about who they were before. And that's why I love having this platform, because I'm able to talk about all of the things that I never got to talk about. And even things that like I would technically I'm supposed to be ashamed of today. Like it's just like, oh, I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, this is a part of my path. It's a part of my journey. It's a part of my karma, my epiphanies, all the things that apparently I wanted to experience with my free will. And my divine connection loved me so much that he gave me free will to decide what I wanted to do. And this is what I did with that free will, based on this influence, based on this, and based on this. But the fact that I saw the error of my way and I never did it again beats the hell out of any of the judgment that you're casting down on me at this moment. So I'm still going to speak my truth and go on with it. But
absolutely, and that's the power, right? And so what I experienced, really, I think you're about to maybe ask this, was I experienced the power of free will. Right, so that in that one case, and whatever it was, we were in a bad place in our lives, and then there was that decision moment, and then that choice, and it was a choice, right? So that's the power of free will. It's our ability to choose our thoughts, and I believe that every moment, consciously and unconsciously, we're literally choosing. We're literally choosing faith and fear. Faith or fear, either one, right? And there's the power there, and so the more we can choose, right, the positive, the faith, and it's just, we take our thoughts captive. And something came to me even just last week that, that I must guard my eye gate, I must guard my ear gate, so therefore I can guard my mind gate. Right, and if we listen to all the media and everything happening these days, it's all negative, right? It's all inflation, it's the war, it's like 2023 is going to be, a challenging year, and so we have a choice, right? We have a choice of what we enter into our biocomputer, and so what goes in, we know, garbage in, garbage out, and so on, right? And so it's the power, and so I want to encourage each of us, right, as we enter into this new year, to choose consciously, what is it you want? Collect positive evidence. What is good? What is happening? And ask the questions like, how can I do this? Not why I can't do this. So, right, it's the quality of questions we ask ourselves. We ask ourselves bad questions, we're getting bad answers. You ask yourself why I can't do this, you'll get all the reasons why you can't. And similarly, you ask yourself how I can, you'll get all the possibilities on how you can. And one of the most powerful things I've ever learned in that regard is I ask myself, well, what are my options? When I ask my mind, what are my options, all the possibilities begin to arise, in contrast to the opposite kind of question. So there's power in our free choice and our ability to choose our thoughts and our choices and stay focused on the positive.
Absolutely. Two things I want to pull apart. Every time I hear the word fear, I learned it's an acronym from a beautiful soul named Alexian that I interviewed on my other podcast, Spiritual Smorgasbord. And he said, fear is false evidence appearing real. So picture it like, an apparition that comes up in front of you and you're like, you don't exist, you're not real. Like, go away, goodbye. Poof. He's like, you have the power to face your fears. He's like, but the more you realize that the fears are truly made up, that gives you the power to go against them even more. Love that one. That's one of my favorites.
Yes, it's powerful. So powerful.
Every time I get a little fear, or like even like what you said earlier, like you didn't listen to your logical brain, you listened to your heart. And I was like, yeah. And following your heart is really scary in this world. I mean, it really freaking is. I don't like, if anybody's listening right now, they're like, yeah, it is. I'm terrified. I'm terrified right now. But my favorite thing about it is that you're not alone. And I guess I love that the more aligned you are, the more unalone you feel, the happier you feel, the alignment that you get with everything that you're doing. Which, what are you doing now? I know that you're a purpose coach, but you also said you're doing fundraising for, was it your church that you're doing?
Yeah, for a faith-based ministry.
Okay, faith-based ministry, got it.
Yeah, and so I've had these visions, and so one of the visions I've got, when I started with this, as an employee, as a fundraiser, to transform lives, as new followers of Jesus Christ. My goal was 100,000 people, and then one day God clearly told me, no, Gary, the goal is 1 million new followers of Jesus Christ. And so I said, okay, just use me, Lord. I'll be the channel. So that's my full-time job. And then I also felt God say, and the leading thereof was that for 100,000 people who are on purpose, having a positive impact in the world. And I see this as a global vision. In fact, I just got off a call earlier where there's some global connections, and there's a great alignment in our heart and our purposes to serve, the world. And so to me, that the two are really combined, or at least I would desire that they would unfold so that I can do international work like our ministry does and help people get clarity on their identity in God, ideally in Jesus Christ, and their God-given purpose. And those two combined would be powerful for 100,000 people to serve the world and to begin to transform the world from its dark place it's at into a lighter place.
As you're talking, I am listening to you, but I always have stuff that comes in to my vision space as well. And I always go back to the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love. And I truly believe that even though a bunch of people thought that they were just tripping acid, writing super crazy lyrics, I actually believe that through all of their meditative practices and all of just like whatever their purpose was, that they were writing about the unconditional love of where we all come from. And I've noticed through a lot of my interviews and just being in so many churches in and out and experiencing so many different religious theologies, that the division in the world is what is killing us as humans. It's not just a specific group of people up in the government trying to do all this stuff. I know they're a part of the problem. I'm not trying to take the blame off anybody. But the division in humanity is something that I have consistently seen, no matter if I sat in a church pew, at a bus stop, in a gas station, or, hey, don't go to that part of town, you're not welcome there. And I've always wondered how, one, the faith got split off in so many different parts where like holy wars are invented and all of this stuff, even though we all realize we're all human and we must come from the same place, but we're all fighting over the definition. And when you tell me that you have this channel coming in, I often wonder if, with how simple humans are compared to the knowledge that's trying to come down to us, if our biggest fault is needing to have tangible definitions to where we come from, and that's why we all fight each other.
That's our biggest downfall? Is that what you're saying?
Like one of them.
Have tangible definitions.
Okay, so let's pretend I'm a Methodist and you're, I don't know, the complete opposite.
Say Baptist.
Yeah, like say you're a Baptist, and then for some reason we meet somewhere and we start comparing our faith that technically has the same origin. Like we're both still talking about Jesus. It would be different if you were Mormon and I was Christian, and then you're talking about your Mormon Bible and I'm talking about Jesus, and like Jesus is a step down from John, I can't think of his name, I'm so sorry, the guy from Nauvoo. Like that, I've been in that conversation and that's different for me. But two people that are technically followers of Jesus Christ, but follow in different ways, but technically follow in the same. And then this weird division is brought onto both of them, even though the origin of their faith is the same.
Yeah, to me, that's the work of the enemy, quite honestly, and in the ego. which actually I think they're connected. I think there's some evil in ego, even though it's designed to protect us and all that.
Yeah.
And so to me, like I understand what you're saying, but I can't relate to it because I don't believe that. I don't believe I'm a denomination. I am a Christ follower. That's it. End of story. Like I am a Christian, and so yeah, I think also what you're leading towards was that if we're going to choose something, let's choose unity and love, unconditional love in the world, not all the differences. And as you were saying with the Beatles, there's power in unconditional love, right? Mm-hmm. And by people being on purpose, it's probably really to serve through love, to serve the planet, to serve the world. So I think your point is extremely well made, that it's about the power of love. In fact, I just had a feeling with last week that the most powerful force in the universe is love. Mm-hmm. The most powerful force in the universe.
Absolutely. I had a question that came to mind when you were saying that, because I was like, yes, that's a great follow-up, Gary. I have this next question. And now it just floated away from me, so I guess it was supposed to.
It'll come back.
Yeah, maybe or not. Okay, so I want to know more about you being a purpose coach and really just not only spreading your message to the world, going in and educating people in any like corporate capacity, but do you also just coach like individuals? Like if they come to you, they're like, this is the hardships going on in my life, and you help them attain a different perspective. How do you go about coaching somebody?
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. And so back to your original question, how I became the purpose coach is that when in the last recession, and by the way, this is the book that I felt called to publish. I pulled all these stories together in a book called The Kingdom Promise, How Leading Canadians Choose Faith to Conquer the Storms of Life. And we can always provide a link for that later if there's any interest. It's like $20. But so I interviewed all these great leaders in Canada, business leaders, church leaders, and it was their faith, right, that enabled them to get through and God's faithfulness, their major life crisis. And so in my crisis, I then felt led, after I felt led to talk to people, I felt led to change my career out of the corporate training business, there was nothing happening for like 2 years, and follow my heart into fundraising for a worthy charity. And immediately the idea resonated in my heart about doing that, transferring my skill set to fundraising to serving a worthy charity. It resonated in my heart. I didn't even know anything about it. Follow your heart. And so I started part-time somewhere that went really well. Worked into full-time and ultimately into Bible League. And so that was the realization I had, is that when one follows their heart, yeah, it may not be perfect. There may be some challenges. There'll be tons of learning. But when you follow your heart, it's always the best decision. And so that's what got me. And I did all this research, like, well, what happens when you follow your heart? And then I realized the bottom line is this. When we follow our greatest passion, which I believe is our current purpose, and when we're on purpose, then we're going to be high performing. And so that's really what got me into this, was my own life experience and being high performing when I followed my heart. And so that's what we do now. We take people through a proven process, one that I created like 10 years ago when I was doing corporate training. And the impact was significant, like with VPs and with the HR managers and with the group managers and any individual, really. And so we have a proven process, 7-step process, which really is about getting clarity of your greatest passion, and then clarity of your different purpose and vision and mission. And we use a closed-eye visualization as a powerful way to get around ego, so we can tap into our soul, which is where the buried treasure of our purpose is. It's already there, I believe, right? We just need to uncover it. Mm-hmm. And so there's a few variety of ways that we do that, through a short master class and through a longer proven process for the whole process. And we kick it off usually with having people attend one of our complimentary webinars. And yeah, we do have one coming up here on January 10th, 11th, and 12th, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So just make sure you got the Eastern Time part. And yeah, so we invite you to attend. It'll be you'll certainly be blessed. It'll be we'll really be unpacking. So I just talked about one principle, which was choosing faith over fear, right? The power of choice. We'll be talking about another 6 proven mindset principles, which helped me get through that last recession, right, with zero income, $50,000 in credit card debt. And so these are proven processes, and these are processes that we can use every day, especially now in this current climate. So come and gain the insight of these powerful principles, and maybe clean up your own thinking and raise your expectations for the new year, and overcome some overwhelm or concern or uncertainty, to understand the power of purpose in an uncertain world. And so we invite you to come and join us for that. And this is way beyond, by the way, this is way beyond a New Year's resolution. This is really about getting clarity and confidence and commitment and success in 2023 by using some proven principles and tapping into and discovering what is your true purpose, which when we know we're on purpose, we barely see the distractions in the world, and your certainty will be like 10 out of 10, not 2 out of 10.
You definitely have a lot of clarity with the way that you speak, and I enjoy it a lot. And my next thing that I enjoy is you were your own guinea pig on your own system. So you're not channeling somebody else's work. You've proved it from your own testimonial is the probably correct term I would use.
Yeah.
And I trust those people 10 times more than someone going off and going and peddling somebody else's program or somebody else's story. But
I used to work for Bob Proctor about 30 years ago.
Yeah. I used to do corporate training in the restaurant industry. I started out just as a server for Texas Roadhouse. And the way that they trained us was phenomenal. We actually, before the restaurant opened, we had about, I think almost 2 weeks of training, like intensive classroom stuff. We're talking about positivity, pep, descriptive words, obviously memorizing everything. And the biggest thing that I got from it was how much the culture really meant, and how much we want you to come to work, and we don't want you to feel like you're clocking into a job. You want to be here to work with all your friends, and we all have a good time. And it really was this sharing of positive energy all around. And then we also had line dance during there too. So you always kept your energy levels up. And as I went through the company, I had just gotten out of a not so good relationship on and off for the past 7 years of my life. And I had like little baby epiphanies is what I would call them, but I didn't have a vocabulary built with my emotions. I was so used to suppressing them or feeling like my voice wasn't really needed or necessary, or if I did stand up for myself, something bad was going to happen. So when I found this company, in the first couple days of training, these people were so nice to me, and they were so complimentary, and I felt safe with them. So work started being a really big safe space for me, because I could go and work with all of these newly founded relationships where these people are like, oh, you're this, you're this, you're this. And these are things that I never saw in myself. I didn't even know this was possible. I was so used to being put down and just, without going into detail, I wasn't used to anybody really being nice to me like that. Like, I had friends and family, I'm not talking about them, but just the person that I spent most of my time with, he wasn't the most positive person to me. And I was so used to that conditioning, is the best way that I could say it, that it took an extreme influence in my life to just be nice to me, to show me there are good people out here, right? So the people that came in and trained us, they were called corporate trainers of the store. And they inspired me so much. And I had given up on a lot of the dreams, including, broadcasting what I'm doing now. Because by that point, I just kind of felt like it was too late. I had messed up too much. I had missed the boat, and I'm just going to go do this, and I'll kind of wing it. I was a wanderer anyways, so I'll always figure it out, right? And when I met these people, they had such a drive and such a passion to not only create something so beautiful within kind of a very mundane industry and a high turnover industry, but they really, really cared about their job and the curriculum that they were teaching. And they were so passionate about the culture and the family of it and just all of us taking care of each other that it was one of the first times in a long time that I had felt inspired to do something. So I decided that I wanted to work up the ranks. I wanted to become a corporate trainer because you got to travel all over the country and all over the world. Like, we had stores in Dubai opening at the time when I got in the company, and they're like, hey, like, here's the steps you have to take to become a corporate trainer, and then, you know, eventually, like, you'll get picked up for store openings, and if you're not doing store openings, then you'll just come back and work at your store and wait for another opening. And again, like, I have wanderlust fever. I was a couch surfer when I was younger, and I've always figured out ways to travel. Like, pennies under the couch, you know what I mean? Like, I always knew where the money was stashed when I needed gas money to get out. And I ended up becoming... oh my gosh, I ended up becoming a corporate trainer. I didn't get to do as many openings as I wanted to because I was in a very slow moving market. But through, I would probably say, the grace of God and the right manager seeing the light in me at the time that I couldn't see for myself, I was able to leave the company for a while. And I remember when I had to leave, he was like, I know you're a little rebellious and I know you're a little theatrical. He's like, do not go and burn all of your stuff. He's like, I'm going to call you in a couple months and you're going to have a management position somewhere. And at this time, I was still just a server, and I was considered a corporate trainer and a trainer in my home store. And just by like the beginning stage of the training program, I realized how much I loved helping people. And I loved helping them understand just the training and how to talk to people. And so I was actually, there's 5 days of training. I was a day 1 trainer, and then I was a day 5 trainer. So the day 1, you brought them into the family and you made them feel welcome and feel comfortable. So like, I had to sit down before my shift with these people, and I was like, all of our books are in front of us, and I pushed it all aside, and I was like, tell me about yourself. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? And they're like they were confused because they're so used to working the regular restaurant industry format where it's just like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to sling people drinks, like, you know, don't mess up my bottom line, blah, 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 blah. Like, super high turnover and rotate in the restaurant industry. And I was like, if you're going to work with me, we're going to know each other. Like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to know your cues. I'm going to know when you're down, like in the weeds is what we called it. I'm going to lift you up and I'm going to be there for you. But if I don't know you and if you don't let me in, I was like, I'm not going to know how to teach you because not everybody learns the same. So I would sit with these people for about 30 minutes before we actually clocked onto the training. And by that point, they had opened up enough to where they were receptive to not only the training program, but me as their trainer. They figured out my personality was very funny and sarcastic, but then I also had kind of like a drill sergeant, you will listen to me thing about me at times. Like, so you would kind of know how to go between me is what I would say. So then day 5 was like the certification where you would work with me and we would make sure that you were ready to go out and serve by yourself. And then I would have to report back to the managers and be like, this is what they have to work on. They're going to be great at this. They're going to be great at this. I recommend they start in this section, yada, yada, yada. So basically, I was doing a bunch of work for the managers that they really didn't have to, and apparently I was really good at reporting back. I was able to be the head of the training team when this store opened, and then through actions of my own that I'll take about 80% on, I was actually demoted from it because I got into a spat with my manager. And I got into a spat with him because he was disrespecting the core values and the owner of the company. And I called him out on it, and you can't really step out of line in the rank, right? Like a server to a manager, it just looks insubordinate. So I ended up getting demoted, but then I ended up getting back on the training team and becoming a corporate trainer after I'd been demoted in my own store. So I was an underdog story again. I had the drive and I knew that I wanted to do it because like training is what kept me in the company. Not necessarily being a manager or anything. It was helping those people, like helping the Cheyennes that walked into the store that their lives were falling apart. And they're like, I don't know where to go. And I'm like, hey, you're safe here with us. Everything's going to be okay. So I ended up having to leave the company for like my 3rd strike, right? Like was over all the politics is what I could say in it. And I get very rebellious when that happens. And I see it as a strength. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, you certainly follow your heart and speak your mind in terms of your character.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely do. And I always remind myself that Jesus was the rebel of his day. So that always makes me feel good too. So the manager at the time, still one of my best friends to this day, he was like, hey, don't go burn your stuff. He's like, I'm going to have a management job for you in a couple months. He's like, I don't know where it's going to be at, but he's like, just go run around for a couple months. Do the hippie stuff you always do. Just go have fun. So I was like, okay. So a couple months later, him and his girlfriend, wife now, Becky, they came into town. They had moved to Kansas City, Missouri, and they had left a couple guitars at my house for safekeeping because I'm also the keeper of musical instruments of anybody that needs them safely tucked away. And they're like, hey, we want to take you out to lunch to thank you for keeping our stuff safe and, you know, just always helping us while you're here. I was like, super great. I love lunch, and I especially love when other people pay for it for me. So let's do this. Yeah. So have you been to a Panera? Do you know like how fast you get your food?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Great, because I need you to understand how fast this happened when we sit down. We sit down, we're waiting on the food, and Zach and Becky sit down and they go, all right, we've come back to get our stuff, but we've also come back to get you. He's like, you have a job interview at the Texas Roadhouse in Liberty, Missouri for a management position. You can pack a bag, you can get in the car right now and we'll take you, and then we'll just come back at the end of the month for the rest of your stuff. He's like, I've already figured out you're going to live with us. You're going to save up a bunch of money. He's like, if you can negotiate the correct salary, he's like, which I think you can. He's like, you'll be able to get out of our house in about 4 months if you want to. He's like, you can stay as long as you want. He goes, and Becky's pregnant with our second child and we really need help.
He had it all figured out.
Yeah, he was like, I have it all figured out. The only thing you have to do is finish that food that's about to hit the table and then just get in the car. He's like, you don't belong here anymore. You've tapped out all your resources. He's like, you don't need to be here. If you continue to stay here, he's like, it's not going to be good for you. He's like, and you're so much better than what's going on here. He's like, there's nothing here for you. I know your family's here. He goes, but it's time to go, Shy, and you need to go with us.
And you made a decision.
So, well, I did make a decision, but I was like, I have dinner with my mom tonight, and I should probably go tell my mom what the hell is going on. So I was like, I'm not going to get in your car today. I said, but yes, I'll show up for the job interview. Like, I'm picking up what you're throwing down, bud. And, like, it was so funny because, like, I'm a really big yoga and meditation person. So when I'm doing yoga and I'm doing my breath work, I'm processing and I'm processing. And I, like, when Zach and Becky moved to Kansas City, I had already wanted to move to Kansas City, and I had already told myself, oh, you'll love this story. So I actually went to a Women of Faith conference in like between 2010 and 2012 with my stepmother, because she always invited me to all of the, I hate to be like the church stuff, but that's what she did. She was always like, come over here, sweetie. So she took me there to this thing, and I remember I was sitting outside on a bench after all the motivational speakers, and I was writing notes, and I was like, this is what I want to do in 5 years, this is what I want to do in 10 years. And I looked up at the sky, and I loved Kansas City, even though I didn't know a lot about it. It was close enough to home, but it was far enough away to find myself. And if I needed to go back home because I was a little homesick, it was like a 3-hour drive, and it wasn't a big deal. So I sat there and I looked up at the sky and I was like, hey, big guy, I don't know why I'm getting this feeling, because like happy feelings were still really new for me at the time. You know, when you're in depression, you get a happy feeling. You're like, oh, it's going to go away. You know, you kind of get like your Eeyore voice about it. So I just remember looking up at the sky, sitting on the bench of this hotel, and I was like, I really like Kansas City, and like if an opportunity ever came up, like I actually think that I would move here. I have no idea how to live in a city. I'm from a small town and a farm, and I have to literally depend on a GPS to get around, but hey, you know, whatever happens, happens. So as I'm doing yoga, probably like 2 weeks before Zach and Becky come and try to kidnap me, and I'm thinking of ways to work in Kansas City. I was like, okay, so I'll work in Quincy for 4 days. I'll drive to Kansas City and I'll work there on the weekends. Like I'll go be like a bar back. Who cares? Like a bar back in a city, just make stupid amount of money, and I'll go sleep on their couch, and I'll live in 2 different places, which is perfect for me because, like I said, I'm kind of like a vagabond. Like I'll just go. Like I'll tie all my stuff up in the handkerchief on the stick and bye, you know? So I was like, however it happens, it happens. But I felt like the awakening and the calling, and you can always feel when something's about to move, right? And
Yes,
I wasn't,
absolutely.
yeah, and I wasn't like that tapped into the energy at the time. Again, I was so comforted by the darkness, I guess I would say, the depression of it all, that I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was our comfort zone then,
Yeah,
right?
I was like, oh God, I really hope this works. I really hope this works. So when the opportunity came up, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I got a flashback of myself on the bench in Kansas City, and I was like, oh God, the opportunity is here. And I'm like, how do I do this, right? How do I do this? I had 2 roommates and a dog that I'd lived with for 2 years, and I was very comfortable being with them too, but I could also see that that was ending itself. And if I, like, if you don't end it, God will end it for you, was where I was at in my life. I was like, if I don't get out now, something's going to force me to get out. So I go to dinner that night with my mom. She's over the stove, she's cooking, she's asked me about life and everything, and she's like, so what do you got going on? What are you going to do? And I said, I think I'm going to move to Kansas City. And she just turns around, like, you can just like hear it like drop, in the pan. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I said, I have a job interview in Liberty, Missouri for a management position at the Texas Roadhouse. So I mean, I figured, like, why not go to the interview? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I was like, and this opportunity literally just fell on my lap. And she just looks at me and she goes, well, when's your interview? And I was like, Tuesday. And she goes, well, what are you doing here? She's like, if you're going to go live there, she's like, why don't you just drive there and just go drive around Kansas City and get a feel for it and see if you actually want to live there before your interview. And I was just like, yeah, that makes total sense, Mom. And she's like, okay, well, when are you leaving? And I was like,
Eat up.
Tomorrow, because you're making dinner right now, and I'm not driving at night. And she's like, okay. She's like, well, pack a bag, go. She's like, call me if you need anything. And I was just like,
Actually, that strikes me as we begin to wrap up here, that's kind of a great analogy for the new year, right? We're leaving the 2022 behind, and we're launching into a new experience in 2023. And we want to help you to launch that for yourself and develop more mental, emotional strength and resilience to keep you on track, and even maybe catch a new vision for yourself for the new year and follow your heart and where you are being led to go and make a difference, where you'll be fulfilled and have an impact on the world and be in a good place. So
my biggest thing that I wanted to get you out of that, because that definitely was my cliffhanger I was going to leave off on, was listen to your heart. Those visions are put in your head for a reason. If it feels good, it's for you. If it feels bad, ask why. And before you 100%. Get off here, do you want to say the webinar information one more time? I'll link it down below, but for anybody that's just jumping on.
Yeah, so the website is landing pages, www.onpurposepeopleperform.com, right? /create-clarity. Okay, so I know it's a bit,
it's okay.
create-clarity.
Below for anybody.
And also if they want to email me, it's GaryGradley21@gmail.com. So we'd love for you to attend. I know you'll get great value from it, and you'll kickstart yourself for 2023 with more clarity and certainty, which is what we all need.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Gary, thank you again so much for coming on. And
Before we get off here, Vitality Exposed is going to bring us a clip from DirtyHeads. It's a show at Grinders in KC that I went to a little bit ago. I picked the song Vacation. It fits in perfectly. If you haven't heard this song, go ahead and check it out. It definitely talks about living your purpose and feeling like you're vacation every day because you're doing the right thing. So thank you, Gary.
Everybody sound like a living dream. I'm just smiling down upon my enemies. Do this shit and love it on a daily. Say you hate your job, but you'll never leave. Never leave. That ain't gonna be me. That ain't gonna be me. My brother called me up, said he saw me on TV. I said